Alright guys, so Cargos told me to check out this video, and I don't really know why or how this one passed me, because we checked out some Dookie gaming videos in the past. This one right here, the real reason Classic Plus is finally happening. Let's see what he has to say.
What if I told you that Classic Plus actually started over 10 years ago? And I know, that probably sounds ridiculous. After all, we still don't even know what Classic Plus really is. Ask 10 different WoW players what Classic Plus should look like, and you'll probably get 10 different answers. Some players want new raids, others want unfinished zones completed, some want horizontal progression, some want new professions, others don't want Blizzard changing much of anything at all. That's because Classic Plus has never had one clear definition. It's always been an idea. And I think that idea has been evolving for over a decade, not because Blizzard planned it, but because the Classic WoW community never stopped asking one question. What if vanilla never stopped growing? Because without the Classic WoW community, there's probably no Nostalrius. Without Nostalrius, there's probably no Classic WoW. Without Classic WoW, there's no Season of Discovery. And without years of players experimenting with new ideas, I don't think we'd be having conversations about Classic Plus today. So with this video, I want to tell you why I believe this is the real reason Classic Plus feels closer than ever. Because I don't think the road to Classic Plus started with Blizzard. I think it started with the community. Now, before we could talk about Classic Plus, we first have to go back to a time before Classic WoW even existed. Back then, World of Warcraft looked completely different. Retail had evolved dramatically from the original game. New systems, new mechanics, new expansions. For many players, that evolution was exciting, but for others, something had been lost. The slower leveling, the dangerous world, the server communities, the class identity, the feeling that your reputation actually mattered. The world felt smaller, but somehow it also felt bigger. So naturally, more and more players started asking Blizzard for official vanilla servers. The response they received would become one of the most famous quotes in World of Warcraft history.
You think you do, but you don't.
From Blizzard's perspective, players were remembering vanilla through nostalgia. They remembered the excitement, but forgot the corpse runs, the long leveling, the class imbalance, the inconvenient mechanics. Looking back, it's easy to laugh at the quote made by J. Allen Brack, especially knowing what happened afterwards. But at the time, Blizzard genuinely believed World of Warcraft had evolved for the better. To them, going backwards simply didn't make sense. The problem was that the community felt differently. And when Blizzard said no, the community didn't stop asking. Instead, they built their own answer. Private servers, which existed for years, but to many players, they weren't simply a way to play old content. They were a way to preserve a version of World of Warcraft that Blizzard no longer supported. Communities began forming around the original game, not because they hated retail, but because they loved vanilla. They wanted to experience Azeroth the way they remembered it. One of the communities would eventually become impossible to ignore: Nostalrius. Unlike many private servers before it, Nostalrius exploded in popularity. Hundreds of thousands of accounts were created, server populations were thriving, players weren't just visiting for nostalgia, they stayed, guilds formed, communities grew, friendships were made. For the first time, there was undeniable proof that vanilla World of Warcraft still had a massive audience. Then, in 2016, Blizzard shut it down. For many players, this wasn't just another private server disappearing, it felt like the end of a movement. The reaction from the community was immediate. Petitions for legacy servers spread across the internet, amounting to almost 280,000 signatures. Content creators covered the shutdown, players rallied together, eventually members of the Nostalrius team met directly with Blizzard to discuss the demand for legacy servers. And what happened next changed World of Warcraft forever. At BlizzCon 2017, Blizzard officially announced Classic World of Warcraft. 2 years later, Classic launched, and it wasn't just successful, it became one of the biggest MMO launches in modern gaming.
It's like Blizzard seems like they love throwing out cease and desists, and well, recently lawsuits as well, like versus Turtle WoW versus Ascension. But I firmly believe if it wasn't for any of these private servers, Classic Plus would have never existed in the first place. They proved that Classic Plus was something that people wanted to play, and they also gave them the blueprint for how it could have been made. Like, Turtle WoW gave one vision of what Classic Plus could be, Ascension has given another one, there's probably other servers out there as well that has tried to do like something Classic Plus-ish. It proves to Blizzard that number one, the concept is in demand. It also gives them the blueprint for how to create the game or the concept in the second place, and it also shows how popular the game can be, because they get actual player numbers. It's like free field research. These people are doing so much free work that Blizzard themselves no longer have to do now. It's kind of like Season of Discovery was a testing ground for Classic Plus, but did we really need that? Because private servers already had done the testing for it, and we had Ascension to be like, how many changes do you want to have? How close to retail do you want things to be? Then we have Turtle, which is way more grounded, way more found photograph style, and just vanilla style Classic Plus-ish, right? And then Nostalgius as well proved the massive demand for Classic WoW, that before Nostalgius, you think you do but you don't, really proves Blizzard's mindset towards Classic WoW before people prove to them to be like, we want this. This is how many people want it. If a private server company can do it, why can't you? You have millions or billions of dollars, right? It proves everything. And yeah, like the response for Classic WoW, you think you do but you don't, and then they start being like, oh, you remember when you had to look for a tank, you had to send messages in trade chat, in general chat. Now you don't have to do that because all you have to do is press a button and teleport there. As if that was a slam dunk argument, and they were proud of that. They were like, you remember how bad Vanilla WoW was? We've made it good now. This teleport functionality is good. Walking is bad. And I'm just like, bro, what you say makes me so sad.
Millions of players returned, servers filled with multi-hour queues, even streaming platforms like Twitch exploded. The community had proven something. Players didn't just think they wanted vanilla, they actually did, and Blizzard finally had their answer. For a lot of people, that's where the story ends. Classic came back, mission accomplished, but not necessarily. That's actually where a completely different story begins. Once players had experienced vanilla again, the conversation slowly began to change. People weren't asking, can we have classic? They already had it. Instead, a different question started appearing. What's next? For Blizzard, that answer seemed straightforward. The Burning Crusade, then Wrath of the Lich King, continue progressing through original expansions. And at first, that's exactly what most players wanted. The Burning Crusade launched, then Wrath, both were incredibly successful. But replaying those expansions also revealed something else. This wasn't the first time many players had experienced them, so eventually, replaying the same expansions started showing some negative signs, not because the expansions were bad, far from it. TBC and Wrath are still considered two of the greatest expansions Blizzard has ever made. The problem isn't quality, the problem is repetition. Players had finally gotten what they'd been asking for, but after 2019 servers progressed past TBC and Wrath of the Lich King, the community started to imagine something new. What if Classic didn't have to end? What if Blizzard didn't simply repeat the same cycle forever? What if, instead of moving forward into different worlds or having something like Cataclysm change the landscape, they moved sideways, expanding the vanilla world instead of replacing it? Looking back, I think this is where the idea of Classic Plus truly started taking shape, not as one specific feature, not as one specific expansion, but as a question. What if vanilla never stopped growing? And while Blizzard has continued recreating the past,
I do think that question started though before Classic WoW came out in the first place, because not everyone wanted Classic WoW. Some people wanted Classic WoW, but like he said, to never stop. Before Classic WoW even came out, Turtle WoW apparently came out before Classic. You can think about that, like Turtle WoW, one of the major Classic Plus servers, was already in works before Classic WoW came out in the first place. But I do think he's right on the whole mindset thing here as well. There's also a kind of interesting thing that happens in Classic WoW, where whenever you leave the Vanilla WoW world, you start missing it. And it's really obvious in certain phases, like TBC Classic, Phase 2, that is when hardcore started slowly building up. Like community-made hardcore. and also Season of Mastery. And then Wrath, the Ulduar phase, that is when hardcore really took off, and we also got Season of Discovery. It's just certain phases of both TBC and Wrath are a drag, and also the raids are quite difficult. So some people either get bored, or they realize that the raids are now too hard for them, and they want to go back and just play vanilla WoW. It happens over and over and over and over again. Even now in TBC Anniversary as well, we're seeing a massive drop-off, you guessed it, in Phase 2.
Of the community had already started exploring that future. This is where I think the story becomes really interesting, because while Blizzard was focused on recreating official expansions from 2019 to now, the community wasn't standing still. Different groups of players began experimenting with entirely different visions of what Classic could become, and what's fascinating, that none of them agreed with each other. Some believe vanilla should stay almost exactly the same. Others believed it should continue growing as if Blizzard had never abandoned it. Projects like Turtle WoW became one of the biggest examples of that philosophy. Instead of reinventing World of Warcraft, Turtle asked a simple question. What if Blizzard had just kept developing vanilla? What if there were new quests that felt like they belonged in the original game, new zones that respected Warcraft lore, new dungeons, new stories, new adventures that felt authentic to vanilla's design philosophy? Whether you personally played Turtle WoW or not, it demonstrated something important. There was a community that didn't just want to replay vanilla forever, they wanted to continue living in it while also expanding it. Then there were even more servers like Project Ascension. Instead of expanding the world itself, Ascension experimented with something completely different: the game's systems, class identity, abilities, character progression. It challenged long-standing assumptions about how World of Warcraft could be played. And again, this wasn't everyone's vision of Classic Plus, but that wasn't the point. The point was experimentation. Players weren't satisfied with asking what was Classic. They had started asking, what could Classic become? Then there were countless other projects, servers like Epoch or Stormforge, community-driven expansion concepts, custom content projects, ideas shared across forums, Discord servers, Reddit, and YouTube. Every community had a slightly different answer. Some wanted unfinished zones like Mount Hyjal finally completed and added into the vanilla world. Others wanted entirely new dungeons, new raids, new lore. Others wanted almost no class changes at all. No one could really agree on exactly what Classic Plus should be, but everyone seemed to agree on one thing: Classic didn't have to stop growing. Looking back, I don't think any one private server really created the idea of Classic Plus. Nostalrius proved players wanted vanilla back. Turtle WoW explored how vanilla's world could continue growing. Project Ascension challenged the way players thought about classes and progression. Other projects experimented with entirely different philosophies. Each one added another piece to the puzzle. Individually, none of them were Classic Plus, but collectively, they helped shape the conversation that Blizzard would eventually become a part of. And that's why I think it's important to tell this story, because when people talk about Classic Plus today, they usually start with Blizzard. However, I think Blizzard is far too late to the party. The conversation had already been happening for years. Blizzard just hadn't joined it yet. And one thing that I think is lost in this conversation is just how impactful Nostalrius truly was, and how much headway it made when it comes to Classic Plus. Because like I said in the beginning of the video, without Nostalrius, I don't think Classic WoW would have happened, and I also don't think the idea of Classic Plus would be where it is today. Now, when you do look back, the community had been experimenting with different ideas for over a decade. The conversation never truly stopped. Then something changed. In 2023, Blizzard released Season of Discovery. For the first time since Classic launched, Blizzard wasn't simply recreating old content. They were adding to it. Ruins completely changed how classes were played. New quests sent players across Azeroth. Black Phantom's Deeps became a raid, then Nomer again, then Sunken Temple, later Karazhan Crypts, Scarlet Enclave, new world events, new gear, new encounters. Whether you loved every decision Blizzard made with Season of Discovery or completely disagreed with some of them, I think SOD proved something much bigger. For years, Blizzard had treated Classic as something to preserve. Now they were treating it as something they could build on. To me, that wasn't Blizzard copying private servers, and it wasn't Blizzard suddenly inventing Classic Plus. It was Blizzard finally joining a conversation that the community had already been having evolving for years. A conversation that asked one simple question: what if Classic kept evolving? Season of Discovery wasn't perfect. Every player has their own list of things Blizzard got right and things they got wrong, but perfection isn't really the point. The point is Blizzard proved they were willing to experiment, and once that door opened, the entire conversation around Classic changed. Fast forward to today, Classic feels very different than it did just a few years ago. Players have now replayed Vanilla, the Burning Crusade, Wrath of the Lich King multiple times. Replay fatigue is becoming a real conversation inside the community. Not because those expansions aren't great, they absolutely are, but eventually, even the greatest adventures lose some of their magic when you've already experienced them several times. Players have started looking beyond simple re-releases.
I wonder if when we have played Classic Plus for a while, I think people are going to start asking for TBC Plus and Wrath Plus. Maybe not as expansions to Classic Plus, maybe even as a season as well. I just think people will at some point start missing TBC and Wrath, and they will want to play TBC and Wrath, but maybe not in a one-to-one copy of what TBC and Wrath was. People are going to start fantasizing about what TBC could look like with changes like Classic Plus has. What if we get, Warlords of Draenor, right? Warlords of Draenor is built on a different timeline of the TBC zones. It's still the TBC zones, but it's in a different timeline. What if we get that timeline, but in the actual Burning Crusade? So an earlier version of the Burning Crusade. Or we could even just get the Burning Crusade with some more class changes, maybe a new class, I don't know, like a Demon Hunter class, an Illidan Stormrage lore, and what if we don't have flying? TBC with no flying, for example. I think there's many things Blizzard can explore here for both the Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King, either in a permanent plus style server situation or even a season. Season of the Burning Crusade Discovery, season of the Northrend Discovery. I don't know, just different types of season of Discovery.
They're asking bigger questions. Where does Classic go after TBC or potentially Wrath? Do Anniversary Realms reset? Does Blizzard continue experimenting? Is there something bigger being built behind the scenes? Over the last year, those conversations have only grown louder, with data mining, Project Camelot rumors, creator discussions, Blizzard inviting creators out to talk to them about something, Season of Discovery continuing with things like Community Fresh, and even if none of these things individually confirm Classic Plus, together they paint a very different picture than they did 5 years ago. Classic no longer feels like a museum piece. It feels like a living game, a game Blizzard is finally willing to experiment with, and maybe that's the biggest difference of all. 10 years ago, players were fighting just to get Vanilla back. Today, players are debating how Vanilla could expand. That's an incredible shift, and it didn't happen overnight. I think it happened because thousands of players spent years proving there was still passion for this version of World of Warcraft, not just by playing it, but by imagining where it could go next. Private servers, community discussions, fan concepts, forum posts, YouTube videos, every one of them pushed the conversation a little further, until eventually Blizzard started asking the same question: what's next for Classic? And I think that's why Classic Plus feels closer today than it ever has before. Not because of one leak or rumor or a Blizzard announcement saying that they're working on their next project set in the original WoW design space, but because for nearly a decade, the community has been laying the foundation long before Blizzard ever started building on it. So let's go back to what I said at the beginning of the video. What if I told you Classic Plus actually started nearly 10 years ago? After everything we've talked about, I don't think that sounds nearly as crazy anymore, because this story was never really about one private server. It wasn't about Nostalrius. It wasn't about Turtle WoW. It wasn't about Project Ascension. And it wasn't about Season of Discovery. The story has always been about the community. A community that refused to let Vanilla disappear. A community that proved Blizzard was wrong. A community that spent years asking questions Blizzard wasn't asking themselves. What if Vanilla kept growing? What if unfinished zones were finally completed? What if there were new raids? What if there were new stories? What if Classic didn't have to end? Every private server answered those questions differently. While Nostalrius proved players wanted Vanilla, other community projects continued testing new ideas. None of them amounted to Classic Plus, but together they kept the conversation alive, and I think that's incredibly important because ideas don't suddenly appear overnight. They evolve, they grow, they change, and that's exactly what's happened with Classic Plus. 10 years ago, the community was fighting just to preserve Vanilla WoW. Today, we're debating what the future of Classic should look like. And I don't think Blizzard gets to this point without everything that came before it. So again, without the Classic community, there's probably no Nostalrius. Without Nostalrius, there's no Classic WoW. Without Classic WoW, there's no Season of Discovery. Without years of experimentation, there probably isn't a community asking Blizzard for something more. It's almost like every step naturally led to the next, not because anyone planned it, but because the community never stopped pushing the conversation forward. So, we still don't know exactly what Blizzard's long-term plans are. Maybe Classic Plus or Project Camelot is the beginning of that future. Maybe Blizzard has something completely different in mind. The truth is, none of us at the time of this video releasing know. But I do think one thing has become very clear. The conversation around Classic Plus has been happening for the last decade. And maybe that's the real reason Classic Plus feels closer than ever. Because a simple question was asked by thousands of players who simply wanted vanilla World of Warcraft to keep growing. And after all of this time, I think we're finally starting to see where that journey might lead. With all of that said, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think about Classic Plus? Do you think Blizzard will draw inspiration from the foundation the community has already built? Or do you think it will be something else entirely? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe for more World of Warcraft content. Also, be sure to check out my Discord, where we chat about everything related to Classic Plus. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Oh man.
Yo, that was a good video, by the way. Holy. I really like this. And yeah, like pulling in the private servers is kind of like history is repeating itself. We had Nostalrius, which started off rather small, and then grew to the point of Blizzard taking notice and being like, okay, you know what, it's time to stop. And they shut it down and they launched their own thing. And the same thing is happening now as well. Turtle WoW Ascension probably got too big. Blizzard takes them down and they're launching their own product. I don't think that's the right approach, but then again, it's Blizzard's IP, it's their game, it's their copyright, they can do whatever they want. I just feel like these private servers are doing so much free testing for Blizzard. And I think the games would have been so much better as well if anyone from those teams were part of the development, in this case of Classic Plus. Because I'm not sure if I fully believe in Blizzard to give us the best version of Classic Plus out there. I mean, for anyone who played Classic WoW, do you feel like vanilla Classic WoW has it been better off in Blizzard's hands than the Nostalrius team? Because I feel like if they announced when Classic WoW was announced, everyone was so happy and just over the moon, right? But if during the same announcement they also announced WoW tokens would be coming, store mounts would be coming, a level boost would be coming, and at some point you would be playing Mists of Pandaria Classic, the mood would shift. It would get really sour. So yeah, I feel like Blizzard haven't really been inspiring me with confidence that they will give the best version of Classic Plus out there. They really haven't. But time will tell. Maybe I'm cooked. I do hope that I'm cooked, because I want Classic Plus to be insane. I'm rather cautiously optimistic. I like to consider myself to be a realist. I don't want to dream too much. I also don't want to be a doomer. I look at what's happened in the past and I pull experience in, and based on Blizzard's experience, I don't have the biggest confidence on this. Either way, let me know what you think in the comments down below as well. A very good video by Dookie, by the way. The link is going to be in the video description. Alright, leave a like, leave a comment, do the YouTube stuff, like and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.